I tell you, boy, it was electrifying today. Isaiah Lloyd Thomas III lit a bomb. And on the Patreon, we went kind of hard in the paint. So if you guys have seen that, I'm glad you've seen it and you enjoyed it. But let's speak on the other narrative. And shouts out to the Pivot for an unbelievable episode. Probably the best episode I have ever seen. Because not only did this address all the factors about the Michael Jordan thing, this was bigger than just Michael Jordan. This is about putting respect on the team in the NBA that changed the entire league. The Detroit Pistons is the greatest innovative team in the history of the NBA. We've changed the sport for the better. We've changed the game. There wasn't a stretch five into the Detroit Pistons. You didn't have centers that was going out shooting threes. Lambeer could shoot threes. He would take your center all the way out to the three-point line, unless they gonna go in the lower post and guard Edwards, which some of them chose to do. And what this would do would free Lambeer up to get rebounds, because they'd be so concerned with Edwards down in the block, they're forgetting about Lambeer, who was one of the most underrated rebounders on the team. But Isaiah Lloyd Thomas III did this, playing 13 years in the NBA. He was an all-star 12 times in a row. And this is the greatest player that ever played in the game, period. You heard Ryan Clark open up with, "You're my father's favorite player that ever played the game." So people act like it's very alien when I say Isaiah Thomas is the greatest player to ever play. When I say Isaiah Thomas is the greatest player to ever play the game, you know what I'm saying? What I'm saying is I saw it. I'm not saying this because I watched the documentary where they didn't show one guy get his butt kissed through the whole thing and they painted a narrative of another team, the one that they wanted to show. I watched the games. So you got a lot of fans that come in and they make their own narratives up and they say, "Oh, well, the Pistons were dirty." The whole league was playing that way. The Bulls weren't choir boys. They had their guys on their team that was laying wood. It's just that we had better players. That's all. And we just saying, and like Isaiah is saying, is don't try to act like we was just some thugs out on the court. Give us our proper etiquette. That's all we're saying. And that's all he was fighting for. Zeke was like, just give us our proper etiquette, man. That's what this was about. And he was enlightening y'all to the facts. Because y'all don't remember that NBA. The $1 billion league you see today was not the league back then. They didn't have billions of dollars. Guys was getting $2.4 million a year. And that was, that was the wave. Won all these endorsements. They had Coca-Cola and everything, but they weren't really breaking the bank. Now, let's listen to Isiah.
I think it was in 83 or 84, which made it, real controversial. I said, at that time, the only people who were covering our sport were white males. There were no females. There was only one black editor at that time in the United States. Well, only one black editor. And everybody who was covering the sport were white men. And I said, what was my quote? I said, I do not want to be judged or perceived through only the gaze of the white male. That became like, crazy. And then I was vice president of the Players Association at that time.
And when he was vice president, he made that statement. And when it did, it caused a roar throughout the NBA because it had brought up the light to David Stern, who already knew Isiah was very astute. Man, this dude just shook up things. But we could spin this to we're trying to show opportunity because who really cares about Detroit, right?
And then I became president of the Players Association.
Yep, right after that, Zeke was named president of the Players Union. Went from vice president to president. And then this happens.
And I said to David Stern, during that time, I said, hey, my team's not going to play until we get, some, they call it diversity now. I said, until we get some black people covering our team.
And once that happened, and the reason for that is the biasness that was used to promote normally the Boston Celtics, the Lakers, or who have you. They all would write bogus, biased articles about the other athletes who seem to be African American. Now, everyone saw it for themselves. They saw what I was talking about. They saw the narratives. They did. They saw all of the narratives. And David Stern gave in because he was like, well, hell, nobody gives a damn about what's happening in Detroit. Fine. You can have your black riders.
David Stern's like, all right, okay. Now, to this day, in Detroit, and if you go back and you look at the Detroit Pistons then, we were the first team that had 2 African Americans on the beat, 2 females covering our team, and every beat writer became a columnist. From Terry Foster to Drew Sharp, Brian Burwell, Matt Clifton, and even when you look at the Pistons now, in Detroit, I think they still have 2 black beat writers covering their team. Now, that became really controversial. I became controversial. And by the way, a lot of other writers didn't like me. And today it's cool to talk about diversity, but back then it wasn't. But Detroit, that's what we represented. And I say this to you. We talk about Lambeer, right? Mm-hmm. The first time Lambeer was ever called a thug in his life. Yeah. Lambeer ain't never been called a thug in his life. Is when he played with the Detroit Pistons.
Right.
But think about that, right? So these labels that they were putting on us, we were fighting and pushing back against those labels. And because we were fighting and pushing back and then calling them out, we became controversial.
Yep. And you wonder why I rep a team like the Detroit Pistons? Everybody in the world should be repping the Detroit Pistons. I don't care what team you root for in the NBA. You should stand and applaud whenever the Detroit Pistons come to your town. They're the reason you have 5-star hotels. They're the reason you can fly on a plane. All the players in the league, no owners own planes. They own them themselves, but they ain't give a damn about you players. They had Michael Jordan on the bus, flying coach. They had Magic Johnson and Larry Bird, flying coach. And you mean to tell me Isiah Thomas get to fly on his own plane? How is that? That all these guys are better than him, right? That y'all keep telling me. And I said he was the best all around. From an activist, from a businessman, business perspective, everything. They did everything in this world to try to take him down. And do you want to talk about him as a player? Because that's what everybody be like, man, we don't care about that outside the basketball thing. What about on the court? You want to talk on the court? Now remember, I said he's the greatest basketball player to ever touch a basketball. I stand by that because I seen it. All the people who you think is great, who you think is the best, this person is that. Michael Jordan, he got the shoes. And where's Isaiah's shoes? You know, all the stupid stuff y'all talk about. I ain't saying Michael Jordan wasn't a talent. He had God-given ability. He was 6'6", he could jump out the building. He worked on his game and had to evolve after spending 7, 8 years. He wasn't getting it. He was scoring, but they were losing. He didn't understand the game. He didn't understand that the game of basketball is 5-on-5. He didn't understand this is what it takes to win. You have to outsmart your opponents. It's not about how many points you could score. Any knucklehead could score, as Barkley would say. And that knucklehead could score. Anybody can score a basketball in the NBA. That's not hard. Like Michael Jordan said, 30 points a game, that's something. That's 8 points a quarter. That's 8 and 8. Now I got my 30 points. You know, it's like, what are we really doing here? So it's like, you think Michael Jordan can't get 8 points in a quarter? Of course he could. But it's about making sure your points don't impact the game. So y'all see the box score. Michael Jordan had 40 this, 40 that, but his points wasn't dictating the outcomes of the games with the Pistons when they implemented the Jordan rules. So he needed to move the ball around more. That way, it could thin out the defense. He didn't realize this because he was so gifted in his athletic ability that you guys were blinded by it. And I'm not down on y'all for that. I don't blame y'all. This is the thing. I don't blame y'all for not knowing the truth. But when people reveal the truth, don't say it's a lie because you've been following behind the magic that they've been presenting to you. It's like, dude, you was in Disney World. We understand. But we trying to tell you that Mickey Mouse ain't real. And you, hey, man, don't you dare say that about Mickey. I just saw Mickey. It was excellent. He came up there. He was on the floor. You trying to tell me I didn't see Mickey Mouse? We understand. You saw Mickey Mouse, and it was wonderful. But you was at Disney World. You supposed to see Mickey Mouse at Disney World. But Mickey Mouse ain't real. And that's what Isaiah's trying to tell you. You don't know the truth. They've been lying to you. I've been telling you. They've been lying to you. You have been lied to and fed a false narrative because they want you to buy into the storylines. You don't even know how many of these young kids are followers of Michael Jordan. They were born like 10 years ago. They were born during the LeBron and the whole Miami Heat thing era, and they still hold Jordan up to an accord because they have been programmed. Either their parents have programmed it in their mind that Michael Jordan was this, it's Jordan, or what have you. Me being in Chicago, I see it all the time. These young kids are possessively controlled because the shoes, the clothing, the logo. But a lot of them watch LeBron and John Morant and all them, and they love them. But they still would keep Michael Jordan up there because their parents told them, no, my dad showed me tapes of Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan was the guy. He was the guy to sell it. He was the guy they built the league around and made the Walt Disney version of it on NBC for their marketing deal. He was their marketing giant. And yes, he did his role in that part. But was he the best basketball player ever? No, he was not. Isaiah felt Michael was at one point. At one point in the game, Mike became the best player in the game while he was playing it. Doesn't mean he was the greatest of all time. Isaiah saying LeBron is the best of all time is him using cerebral mind tactics because he knows that pisses it eats at Michael Jordan. Y'all don't think it do, but it eats at his soul when they tell that when he got to watch somebody who's completely inferior to him as a basketball player be put on a pedestal ahead of him. And it's like, oh, wait a minute. Y'all put him above Kobe too? It's like, oh, wow. Like, it's really insane. So for Michael Jordan to see that, like when everyone thinks I think Michael, you said Jordan was way better than LeBron. Yes, of course. You know how many players are better than LeBron that are playing right now? All of them. LeBron has not possessed the skills of a basketball player. He has athleticism. That's what has gotten him by. And over 20 years, he's worked on a little fadeaway shot they've changed the rules so that he could win. Same thing they did for Michael Jordan. It's the one reason why Wilt Chamberlain never honored Jordan like that. Because they catered to him to win. See what I'm saying? Now, for the Boston Celtics and Larry Bird, they had the best teams in the league. Guys used to pay money under the table to get these draft picks. Why was Boston and the Lakers getting all the best players in the draft? Like, how did the Lakers get that bad in the draft where they can get James Worthy on their team? They lost Jamal Wilkes and replaced him with James Worthy. You know, it's like, how? He had just won the national championship, was most valuable player in college, and he leaves and he goes to the Lakers. How was the Lakers able to pick up James Worthy? Politics. See, the league, in order for them to be successful, they moved the Lakers from Minneapolis over to Los Angeles so that they could be their flagship team to go up against the West Coast, East Coast matchup. And the Celtics, the whole NBA was created around the Boston Celtics. They were supposed to prove they were the most dominant basketball team. Boston is basketball town and all of these things. And it was only 8 teams in the league. And Boston normally was going to win the championship. Red Auerbach's going to win. That's that. So when Dr. Buss came in, you know, winning championships to him and just beating Red Auerbach was his goal. You know, like Red's just like, well, whatever. I get what I want, and that's just that. Just be happy, you know, you guys make the playoffs. And for guys to get championships in those days, if they were superstar players and they just for their reward, they would either go on the Celtics team or a team that the NBA is really pushing for a championship that year. They would put them normally on a Boston Celtic team and then let them get a championship. You know, you saw Tiny Archibald get a ring. You saw Pete Maravich get a ring. They go play their whole careers for the teams that they play for, and then towards the end of their career, they put them on the Celtics. So they can go see what it's like to win a championship and get that experience. That's how the NBA was ran. That's what the whole system was built around. That formula. And then the Lakers became the formidable West Coast team, and it became a star-studded event when Magic came there. So while people have their notions on what is real and what is illusion, let's listen to something about the Detroit Pistons, right? During that time. Remember Nelson Mandela, right? When he came to America?
John Sally in the Detroit pit, out of prison in 1990. The first city we were fighting and pushing back and then calling them out, we became controversial. And when Nelson Mandela got out of prison in 1990, the first city he visited was Detroit, and the first team that he took a picture with was me, John Sally, and the Detroit Pistons. And that spoke volumes to the league because we have been pushing back on this whole black male thug, the way you talk about us narrative. And, you know, so race, class, culture, you know, that's where I come from on the West Side.
So Isiah lets you know his mother was an activist who lived 4 blocks away from Dr. Martin Luther King when he lived here in Chicago. The Black Panthers lived here. He brought up the Moors, too. The Moors lived here, and the Vice Lords, all on the west side of Chicago. Now, what is the narrative going to continuously be? Right? Isaiah's the bad guy because we need a villain. See, the Boston Celtics became the bad guys, but it wasn't like that at first. Magic Johnson and the Lakers were the bad guys. Y'all didn't even know that. Bird was the shining knight. The Boston Celtics, their writers and everything, and Magic Johnson, this flashy, arrogant kid from the Midwest. That's just all smoke and mirrors. They can't play real physical hard nosed basketball like they do in Boston. Larry Bird was the good guy. Magic was the bad guy. He was the villain. In the newspapers, they would run the print to make Magic look darker than what he actually was, to make him look evil. As they assume that darkness is evil, and Larry Bird was bright as this shining light and the beacon of hope. But they couldn't get that game going. Larry lost to like the 76ers or somebody on their way to the finals. So Magic was winning championships. Then when they actually met and Bird won and got his revenge, and he was able to beat Magic Johnson and bring a championship back to the Celtics, it spoke volumes. Magic was the bad guy. But then things flipped. Everybody loved Magic. Oh, they started to love Magic Johnson because he did a commercial with Larry Bird. Those two became friends. And during that 86 championship run of the Celtics, it was like, wow, this is it. Like, this guy is like Magic, and, him embracing Bird, and they were actually friends, and people were like, and his smile, all of a sudden, people's like, Magic's a good guy. Why do we don't dislike Magic? How? He's so much fun. And all that money was coming into the league because all the actors in Hollywood wanted to go to the game to be entertained, to see Magic and them run that offense up and down Showtime. And it was just an event to be there. Other actors would come in town and directors who had season tickets, they would go ahead and, let an actor go there or actress go to the game on them, to lure them into film projects or whatever. It was the place to be. But the NBA changed and evolved. And while Magic and Bird might have saved the league from bankruptcy and collapse in the early 80s, let's talk about the biggest notion that people haven't even paid attention to yet. And the biggest notion is the most viewed, highest rated games. because they act like the Detroit Pistons was just an anomaly, right? Let's talk about that.
And then we the first team to start traveling with our own private plane.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, we upgraded all the standards in the league across the board. And check this out. To this day, you hear bad boys when you talk about the Detroit Pistons, right?
Yeah.
We were the first team to introduce another color that we took from football, the Oakland Raiders, the silver and black. Y'all know Mike Ornstein, right? Okay, so Orny was the one who kind of put the whole marketing thing together, putting us with the Oakland Raiders, the silver and black, intimidate, dominate, we go out for shoot around, and we got on Raider football jerseys, and that became our third color.
Yeah.
One of third colors in the NBA. So all of this, new color, third jersey, shooting shirt, hotels, travel, we changed all that, right? That was controversial. We weren't supposed to be doing that. Now they give others credit.
And boy, shouts out to the pivot. My God, this is the greatest interview I probably have ever seen. So much truth is told. So all those street jerseys you like, the NBA street, oh, this is your street jersey. Golden State, oh, the city. We started that when we rebelled against the league, who kept fining us because we stopping their glamour party. Because they want to promote fake. And we're saying if your guy's so good, then why can't he beat us? We stopping the party. We the party crashers. And what do you know? There was no law saying that we couldn't wear our bad boy shirts. We in shoot-arounds. We didn't have to wear Piston gear. So we wore Raiders gear. Next thing you know, we got our bad boy shirts in black and silver. We embraced what the NBA named us. They had a DVD, wasn't a DVD then, VHS, called Bad Boys. The NBA did it because they used to advertise on VHS and make these tapes like the basketball dazzling dunks in the NBAs. All these little VHS tapes that cost $19.99. I had all them VHS tapes. I had the Pistons championship videos on VHS back then. So I knew all about it. And they had the camera going inside, behind the NBA, and all of these wonderful things they did, right? Now, they had a tape highlighting the teams of the previous year. And Bad Boys was the tape, was the name of the tape. And they were showing all these teams who they called, he's the bad boys of the NBA, all these teams. So it wasn't just the Pistons, it was all of them. But since the Pistons went all the way to the finals, and they were looked at, they embraced the bad boy name and the image. So it was the bad boys are here. Because we were the baddest and toughest in the town. Bad to the bone. Bad. So that song was out. We was crushing it. And that's it. We were the best team in the world. Best team ever. But now we got to kick it up a little bit. We got to take y'all back to school. School is still in session. Tell them, Zeke.
Now, I'm going to say something else, because now y'all got me talking. They like to give the Lakers and the Celtics, they changed the league.
They brought the league back.
They brought the league back. Mm-hmm. But this is This is how I remember it now. When the league took off, is when the Detroit Pistons really showed up. Now, when we showed up, we was putting 50,000 in the stands. This is all documented now. 50,000 in the stands, 60,000 in the stands, 40,000, 30,000. Then they said, well, y'all was playing in the Silverdome. Yeah, but shit, there was still 50,000 people there watching us play basketball, right? The highest rated games of the 80s. These are the highest rated games. Pistons against Lakers. Pistons against Celtics. Pistons against Bulls. Those are the highest rated games of the 80s. And they all have one thing in common. That's the Detroit Pistons.
Oh my God. Oh my God, man, I gotta go. I gotta get my jersey on. I gotta get my jersey on. What? Ooh. How could you not? All the lies they told you, all the lies they've been feeding you about this Michael Jordan crap is now being torn apart. This is the happiest day. Oh my God. Woo. I'm telling you, I am happy as can be. This made my entire day. Oh man. And those are the facts. I mean, the Jordan stuff, we talked about that on the Patreon. So I'll let y'all, listen to that on the Patreon, my version of and my comments to that. But this was the more telling parts of the pivot to me that really stood out. And I want y'all to go to the pivot. Watch that whole pivot podcast. Isiah Thomas, 12-time NBA All-Star. And when you hear that on the pivot, because they're the best doing it right now. Those, I like the Knuckleheads. I like those guys' show. But those are the best that's out there doing it to me. The real. I am athlete, yeah, a little bit. They gotten a little Hollywood now. But the pivot still is bringing it, the way it's supposed to be. So I'm 100% with this show more than I am athlete. They could do their thing. They have some decent shows. I ain't gonna say they garbage now, but I'm just saying this is where the soul is. This is where the heart is, right here. So I'm supporting that. They got the best right now that's going on. Now, when you deal with what I would say, the other side, the lies, the deceptions, and you go back and look up what he was saying, because it's always some smart aleck gonna want to go back and see if he was lying, and you find out he was telling the truth about every single thing he stated. So if Isiah Thomas is telling you the truth about everything that he stated, then that meant maybe Michael Jordan is lying. Y'all don't want to believe it because y'all been fed the narrative. So it's hard to go back when someone tells you the truth and you've been believing a lie for all these years to all of a sudden, now I got to go back. No. You're going to just keep riding the lie out because you've already accepted the lie. Well, they shouldn't have walked off the court like that. I just don't like the way they walked off the court. They walked off the court all the time. There's plenty of players. You see that in today's game right now. LeBron would walk right off the court after every regular season game. Playoff games, everything. They lost to the Suns. I ain't see him shake nobody's hand. He walked right off the court. He do it every time he lose. He walk off the court. He shake somebody's hands only if he feel like it, or he'll walk off. So it's been happening for years, and it happened after that. Shaq got eliminated by the Michael Jordan and the Bulls. He shot straight to the locker room. He ain't shake nobody's hand. That was his last time in Orlando. They lost to the Bulls. He didn't congratulate anybody. He walked right out off the court. So it happens in the league. Nobody owe you anything. Who were the Bulls? They haven't won anything. What the hell they owe them? The Celtics walked off the court. Kevin McHale came and talked to Isiah Thomas because those two were friends. They were actually roommates on the Olympic team. When they was on the Olympics, those guys were roommates when they was playing on Team USA. So they've been knowing each other for years. Now, we're gonna get to the gist of all this. And the gist of the matter is these people that are in the, what we say, the sector, meaning that they're in a situation that no one could ever fathom with today's athletes. Back then, they needed the transition to go from Michael Jordan, he was the next Dr. J. That's how they perceived it. Jordan is the new Dr. J. Dr. J's retiring. Jordan is the new Dr. J. You know, they bypassed Dominique. Dominique and Bird used to clash. You know, that was the big clash back then. Isiah came in and they took out Dominique in Atlanta. So they were the ones who was now vying to go up against and challenge the Celtics, as Philly had gotten old and they were falling apart. They was they brought in Charles Barkley. You know, Doc is retiring, so the whole team is being restructured now. Guys are going away to other teams. And Moses Malone was, you know, there, but still, you know, he was older. You know, he was the veteran. Their time that came and went. You know, they got Dr. J was able to get his championship, and they were able to move on. It was supposed to be Doc and the Lakers again, and Ralph Sampson hit that shot, and that was it. You know, that was the flukiest shot in history, but it went in, so that altered the finals. Well, you got to look at the scenarios. You got Akeem Olajuwon in his first NBA Finals, you know, during that time. So it was quite you know, he had just gotten the league. So I think that was, they were the Twin Towers. They were dominant, I think, that year. But that was the last horizon. Like that was it. That was the precipice point. So Detroit took those teams down, and they finally got by Dominique and the Atlanta Hawks. So now the Celtics became, they were the team to vie against the Celtics and fight with them and battle them. And once everybody saw that they could not only just compete, they were actually competition for the Celtics. They were difficult to beat. And the Celtics was finding that out. You know, Larry and them would come out on top when they go to Boston. Pistons didn't know how to close games. They had too many scorers out there, and they had to start making changes to the team to become more defensive oriented. Because here's something that I didn't say on there. The highest scoring game in NBA history is still the Detroit Pistons versus the Denver Nuggets. Even right now in 2022. That is the highest combined score game in the NBA. And once again, the Detroit Pistons are right there. So they went from an all offensive team that used to light it up to a defensive team, a team that was dedicated to shutting other teams down and then scoring. So Isaiah sacrificed all the scorings and all this. This dude was doing things that people weren't doing in the league. But when you need him to step up, he was that guy that would come in and close the game. He'll have 33 and 16 assists. That wasn't normal in the 80s for a guy to have like 16 assists in a game. That was like unheard of. Like 33 points and 16 assists. If you got 16 assists, normally you probably got 10 points. Back in the 80s, Magic wouldn't score a lot. Magic would score about maybe 20 points a game, maybe that. Magic wasn't known for that. He was scoring about 15, 16 points and have about 17 assists by the time it's over when he was playing. He's a 15-15 guy. Magic was running the offense and running the show. So he wasn't worried about how many points he was scoring. Once his scoring went up, that's when the team started to struggle. They just needed him to be a threat. And when they were leaving him open to take shots, and they were guarding everybody else. Once the Celtics did that and that tragic Magic Johnson spent all summer learning how to shoot a jump shot that would be threatening to the other teams. And when they won and beat the Celtics in '87, they knew, okay, that Magic is for real. Like this, it's a whole new Magic, and they never gonna be able to beat them again. Well, the thing is that team was beat. They were beaten. And that's when Isaiah threw the bad pass and '87, and they got eliminated when Bird stole the ball, gave it to DJ, and then they ended up going to the finals to play the Lakers in '87. And then in '88, the very next year, we got by them. We finally got the Celtics and became the team in the East because we was the people's champion. You see, back then, Michael Jordan was doing all the dancing in the air and all that, but all the Midwest teams was rooting for Detroit. It was like, all right, we got the brothers in there from the Midwest. They finna go in there and get it. See, we had more togetherness back then that we understood the picture was bigger than what people realized and what that represented. Even though they was from Detroit, you had brothers that was rooting for them for other cities because they was like, dude, this is like the hood going up against Hollywood. And that's how it was. The hood versus Hollywood. Detroit. And they put everything negative on the Pistons, even though they carried themselves with class. You didn't see those guys fighting out in the bar. You didn't have any of this activity coming from the Detroit Pistons outside the organization or anything. They never was in fights. They never was in anything that you would see. Only on the basketball court did they play physical. And if you get in their way, they not beat you up. But after the game's over, that was it. They didn't go out and start tearing stuff up. You didn't have all those problems. They were a well-oiled machine. They ran themselves like a military. They came into the stadium in military unisons. Like it was like they were enforcers. Intimidate and dominate. Lambeer was like the sergeant of arms. Isaiah is the general. He's the 5-star general. So you're going to listen to his command, and Lambert is going to give you the orders. He's going to tell Lambert, who's the sergeant of arms, and he's going to make sure that the rest of the soldiers are in line. This is how the Detroit Pistons organization was ran, like a well-oiled time machine, and that's why they were able to be mentally strong down the stretch to win games. The NBA had to rip off Isiah Thomas, even though they love to show that performance. It's marred by the error they made by making, giving the Lakers the championship. And I'm going to let y'all in on a little secret that I know, and I'm not going to tell you who told me. You guys could think it's a lie or what have you. But I'm going to tell you right now so you can hear it first. David Stern apologized to Isiah Thomas for the 1988 NBA Finals. It was business. It was business. They knew they made a mistake, but that was business. And it had nothing to do with the NBA. It had something to do with the odds in Las Vegas. The odds makers had put the Lakers at high favorites. And there was a lot of people in the Midwest said, oh, the Pistons are the best team in the NBA. They're better than the Lakers. They're going to crush them. No one's like, come on, please. That's playing. This is the Lakers. This is what they do. And they realized that the Lakers had a matchup problem. And Magic Johnson, he really couldn't guard Isiah Thomas. So that would be Byron Scott's job, to try to stay with Isiah while he's got to have to deal with Joe Dumars, another guy who was coming up, who was young, but played the game a lot slower. So, Magic Johnson would be on Joe Dumars. But they had no answer for Vinnie Johnson coming off the bench, the microwave. So now that 3-guard rotation, which we were the first team to ever do that again. Now you see it all the time. We have 3 guards on the court at one time. They never seen anything like that. We were the first team to ever introduce that into the game, where you'll see Joe, Vinny, and Isiah on the court at the same time. No one would even dare put 3 guards out there. That is like way too thin. It was rare that we did that, but we had that. Then other teams had to get a potent 3-man rotation. There was no 6-man of the year award. That was created for Vinnie Johnson, who was 6-man of the year every year. If that was the case, they didn't have the award out, because that award was really him. He was the 6-man. So they started making awards for the 6-man based on Vinnie Johnson. Another fact. You just saw the Lakers, right? How they just had a reunion, got together. Then you just saw the Bad Boys get together and had a reunion. Then you just saw the Celtics. They still can get together and have a reunion. Can the Bulls get together? Oh no, they can't. Why they can't get together? Because everybody damn near hate each other. And they hate the guy that helped win them the championship, that brought the championships home. They all hate him. But Isiah the problem. You see? He the golden guy. Everybody think the flagrant. They made the flagrant foul rule. Here's another fact. Y'all was still getting beat by 24 points by us with the flagrant foul. Y'all thought when they incorporated the flagrant foul, that meant that, oh, Pistons gonna lose. No, we were still the better basketball team. We were smoking the entire NBA. We had jumped off to the biggest start in NBA Pistons history. The defending two-time champions had the best record in the NBA starting the season. Then Isiah got hurt. We was off to our best start in franchise history. Then Isiah got hurt. Well, it was business because the business of basketball once again reared its ugly head when Isiah was not on the Dream Team. And this was all based off of Michael Jordan. One that he venomously lied about for years. He got exposed for being a liar about keeping Zeke off the Dream Team. While he continuously lied over and over, trying to say it wasn't him. Oh, no, I might have applied it. I never said it. They got the audio tape of Michael Jordan saying it. It's on YouTube now, you see? So now you can't lie anymore. So when these journalists back then, when they said it, they actually had to have proof that you actually said this. And they had that proof. See, the media had the power back then. Now, these media, they know that the newspaper's pretty much dead, and some guy sitting on his couch like me, Carcino, could sit there and talk about the game better than a lot of these journalists. So now, the journalist has got to kiss butt to try to keep those credentials so they can get paid. The newspaper is not printing newspapers hardly anymore. These are the thinnest newspapers you ever seen in your life. They ain't fired half their staff just to keep the lights going, to try to keep the print, because everybody's going towards the internet now. All the entertainment magazines and all that, that's all going to internet. It's digital. They're like, man, why are we printing stuff, sending it to people's homes? The magazine era is dead. So we're going totally online. So the only thing that sells in the newsstands and the magazines is what? Gun mags, car mags, and gossip mags. So if you ain't got that, don't even put it out. So I'm glad we can speak freely here. Shouts out to everybody out there. Hope you all hit the like button and subscribe to the page. And we're sitting here listening to Isiah Thomas on the Pivot. I hope you guys go watch it. It was very eye-opening. And we found out how much of a scumbag that, Isiah Thomas said Michael Jordan was. And after what he did, and you can find out the facts all about Jordan. But this is about the standards of what we created for the NBA. We created this whole reality for the NBA that many people don't understand today. We created this reality. They're trying to live it. We created it. So the league is benefiting off of what the Detroit Pistons have made a staple. They don't credit us for that. We don't get credit for round ball one, our own plane. We don't get credited for staying in elite hotels, 5-star hotels. They didn't even let professional athletes into these hotels. But we were allowed. We were the ones to meet Nelson Mandela when he released from prison. The first place he came in the United States was Detroit. First person and first team he ever met, Isiah Thomas, the mayor of Detroit, the Detroit Pistons. This Nelson Mandela. The United States didn't even view him really as an ally at the time. Now they act like he was their greatest friend. So that's that. Now, if you want to talk about basketball play, we could do that. We could do a panel. We'll do a StreamYard tomorrow, and y'all want to bring y'all Michael Jordan was this and all that, y'all can do that. We'll do it up tomorrow. I ain't got nothing but time. It's your boy Carcino. I'm out. Y'all, like I said, you want to hear me talk about the Michael Jordan part of this? That's on the Patreon. Knock yourselves out. I'm out.